This is really funny. Gojo is an awkward teenage boy. My Dress-Up Darling spends a significant part of its runtime letting us know that, and having it play out in various situations. But that's a trope that can get really old, especially in a romance anime, where progress is measured in how far the main pairing's relationship develops. If Gojo is always going to be extremely uncomfortable around Marin, then necessarily things won't have progressed that far. One of the major reasons I think Season 2 of My Dress-Up Darling has been such an improvement over Season 1 is how much more comfortable Gojo is around Marin. Sure, there's the occasional flustered moment, but we get far more instances of them acting normally around each other than not. The thing about the overly embarrassed main character trope is that it puts a limiter on everything else. It's kind of like olives on a pizza. I love them, don't get me wrong, but it has a habit of dominating the rest of the other flavors. The same happens with Gojo. He's so worried about what's going on that his over-the-top reactions drive everything in one direction. We spend a lot of time in his head as he panics, rather than in the scene itself. On the reverse, when Gojo is acting normally with Marin, it lets everything else come to the forefront. Subtle moments have room to breathe. Scenes like the one in the park a couple of weeks ago can't happen if Gojo is freaking out the entire time. It also gives Marin the ability to be the flustered one, a complete reversal of dynamics that is charming in part because of how novel it feels. Even the more serious moments of development benefit from this broad change. Gojo realizing his affection for Marin at the pageant would feel hollow without a more solid foundation to their relationship. So, if you were going to bring back hopelessly embarrassed Gojo, how would you do it without it being a groan-inducing reversal? That, of course, brings us to this week's episode. At first, I'll be honest, I was filled with dread as Gojo seemed to revert back to his old self when Marin suggested spending the night. Not because he was embarrassed, but the specific brand of embarrassment, where he can't speak and is seemingly doomed to sweating profusely as he monologues inside his head. It felt like losing the Gojo that's been built up thus far, and I was a bit disappointed. But then, the story had a clever twist, and actually implemented that embarrassment into the miscommunication between Marin and Gojo about what he's actually buying. I'm trying to remember, what do they call that aisle in CVS again? Family planning, I think? Regardless, why do I think that this was effective where other versions aren't? First of all, it's just really funny. The dramatic irony is thick, but in a really gratifying way. The clicking into place of what's going on for us as an audience is strong, and making it fairly unexpected also adds to the situational comedy. The other reason I also really love this premise is how it pulls Marin and Gojo onto the same footing, as opposed to other moments in the series like this. Take that measurements episode back in Season 1. I really don't like this episode for a lot of reasons. But one of the major ones is that Gojo just feels like a weirdo here. Marin's composure for almost the entirety of the episode compounds how strange Gojo's complete breakdown through it is. Here, this miscommunication allows them both to be really flustered, and for different reasons. Even if you didn't hate earlier iterations of embarrassed Gojo, I think we can agree that this setup has infinitely more angles to resolve the tension. Even the little double entendres Gojo is unknowingly giving are really funny, and easily surpass any internal monologue he has given earlier. Speaking of, simply having Marin have her own little inner debate is a reversal of sorts, and continues to add to the freshness of the scene. Okay, I'll leave it there for now. I mentioned in a community post that I have some larger projects in the works, but I just love this little sequence so much I had to talk about it. Leaving out my continuing thoughts about how gorgeous this show is to look at was tough too. I think once the season wraps up, I'll have a long video about the leap I felt this show made between seasons 1 and 2. I really think it's one of the starker gaps I've seen. Anyway, I don't want to keep you much longer. If you enjoyed, liking and subscribing helps a ton and will keep you in the loop on future videos. As always, I'm SlamAnime and have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time.